Okay, we are live. What I didn't really explain last time fully because I wasn't sure that we're going to continue with this was sort of experimental, but quite a few people asked me to continue. So I didn't really give a proper introduction to this particular Chassidic discourse. Now, just in general, the concept of a Chassidic discourse, of which this one is a prime example, and I'll explain why in a minute. The whole concept of Hasidic discourse is not just a sort of an essay, an academic essay, an intellectual essay explaining some abstruse mystical topic. That's not really what a Hasidic discourse is about. Essentially, what it is really two things. It's bringing down, you could say, a certain light into the world. And the intention is to open up the minds and hearts of those who are listening to it or those who are learning it subsequently in order to have them understand it not just intellectually, but that it becomes part of their being, you could say. So a discourse of this sort is, a formal discourse is not just a class, it's an action, it's an activity, it's a sort of a meeting of souls, if you like. That's really what it's supposed to be. And that's what it largely is for those of us who were actually present at any of these Hasidic discourses when they were given originally. This one was given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1951. I wasn't around then. I might look that old, but I'm not. But I was present for others many years later, 20, 25 years later, whatever. And I can tell you that they were quite an engaging experience, you might say, and an experience to live with, essentially. Okay, so that's just sort of in a general sense. This particular discourse actually is based on a discourse of his father-in-law. This is the first discourse that the rabbi, this is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was the seventh Rebbe of the Chabad Lubavitch line or dynasty of Chassidic dynasty, the Lubavitch Chassidic dynasty, or Chabad as it's called. And his father-in-law had passed away in 1950, in Hebrew Tafshin Yud, and there was his father-in-law did not have any sons, but he had two daughters, and both sons-in-law were sort of in line for the continuation of the dynasty. However, both of them refused to take the leadership for a year. But then, on the day of the day commemorating the passing of his father-in-law, the Rebbe, can be called the Rebbe's a Chassidic rabbi. The Rebbe took upon himself, the Chassidic Grand Rabbi, took upon himself the leadership of Chabad Lubavitch and expanded it tremendously and intellectually, in terms of activities and so on and so forth. So he bases his first public discourse on the discourse of his father-in-law. Now, the discourse of his father-in-law starts off with the idea that in the beginning of creation, this is before the sin of Adam, the divine presence was revealed in this world. Now, what exactly that means when we say revealed, when we say the divine presence, these are all terms that have to be properly defined and explained and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into them all now, but suffice it to say that we can't speak about it in sort of in physical terms. This meant that divine revelation was available everywhere, and Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, saw the absolute truth of everything. They saw the truth of everything. So how could it be that later they would do this? They would participate or get involved in the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. On the one hand, it was intentional. In other words, this was sort of a trap that you could say God had laid for mankind in order for them to not just be living in the Garden of Eden, but to remake for themselves the Garden of Eden, to find, after having been chased out of the garden, to find it once again. And we'll discuss this at a later stage again. But you could say it was a trap that was laid, and the trap was a very simple one, and that is that to partake of the tree of knowledge, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, was actually permissible, but it was only permissible at a certain time. It was permissible only on the Sabbath, but not before the Sabbath, and they partook of it just before the Sabbath, which they should not have done. And the idea is that there's certain types of wisdom that before one can partake of them, this is again the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there's certain types of knowledge that one cannot partake of until they have been rectified or until they have been elevated. And they did not wait for this to be naturally elevated, and therefore they had to do the elevation subsequently themselves. Now, when I say elevation, you'll understand it in a second. It doesn't mean elevate from below to above necessarily. It means now to draw down the divine presence through conscious action to reintroduce the divine presence into the world. So let me explain what happened. After they partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the divine presence withdrew one level from its manifestation down here on earth in the Garden of Eden up to a spiritual level called the first heaven, or the first rakia in Hebrew. After that, yeah, exactly, River, you're correct. You're correct. I'll explain that in a second. What River says over here is absolutely right. Then came a subsequent generation. And subsequent generations, 7 of these generations, pushed the divine presence further and further into a spiritual dimension. In other words, away from the earth and more towards spiritual heavens. So there were 7 generations. There was Adam, there was Cain, then there was Enosh, and then the generation of the flood, and then the Tower of Babel, and so on and so forth. 7 sins that are explained in the beginning chapters of Genesis, and those are the ones that push the divine presence away until the time of Abraham. When Abraham came along with his divine service, he managed to draw the divine presence down from the 7th heaven, from the 7th rakia down to the 6th, and then from then was Isaac, who brought it down from the 6th to the 5th, and then Jacob, and then one of the sons of Jacob, Levi or Levi, brought it down further, and then Kahat brought it down to the 3rd. Amram, that was Moses' father, to the 6th. And then Moses, who was the 7th, brought it back down, the divine presence back down to earth through the giving of the Torah, as it says when the Torah was given. Yorad Havai al Har Sinai, and God descended, so to speak, on the mountain. In other words, the divine presence, in its full capacity, descended once again into the reality of this world. As the first of the 10 commandments starts off with, the word Anochi. Anochi means I myself. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. But Anochi, the word Anochi, represents the idea of the essence of divinity, the essence of God, which is once again revealed in the world at the time of the giving of the Torah. Subsequently, of course, there were generations that pushed it away again, and so on. So it goes on backwards and forwards. Now, Rebbe makes a very good point over here, and that is that the four rabbis went into the paradise. They entered the orchard. In other words, they entered a very, very high level of meditation. And only Rabbi Akiva came out whole. One of the rabbis, there were four rabbis that went in. One of the rabbis died. He saw the divine presence and he did not want to come back, and he simply remained, his soul remained there. And one of them went mad. He couldn't contain the revelation that he saw. He wasn't able to function in the world anymore. A third one became a kafir. He became a heretic. Why did he become a heretic? Because he misunderstood what he was seeing as two domains. Since there are two domains, and that completely contradicts everything in Judaism, he became a heretic by believing in that there were actually two domains. And only Rabbi Akiva went in and came out. He went up and he came down again, because his intention when he went up was to come down and to bring down whatever he could to this world. And this is a constant theme in Jewish history. There are actually other cases as well. In fact, the author of the Tanya. Now, let me explain. The author of the Tanya was a disciple, perhaps the chief disciple of the Maggid of Mizrich, who was the chief disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. So the author of the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, he studied, his study partner. Usually when you study with a partner. It makes for much better understanding and retention and so on and so forth, and much greater depth when you study with a partner. Anyway, his study partner was the son of his teacher. His teacher was Rabbi Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mizrich, and the Maggid's son's name was Avraham. So Rabbi Shneur Zalman and Rabbi Abraham studied together. And one day they decided that they were going to go up to the highest levels. And it says that the expression that's used in Kabbalah is ag uga, right? Which basically means that they sort of baked a bagel, which let's not mistake what that means. What they did was they sort of drew this, I suppose you could call it a magic circle around themselves, and that kind of thing has been sort of so popularized and so misrepresented that it sounds silly. But anyway, that's what they did, and they ascended to the very, very highest levels. And all of a sudden, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi realized that if they go any further, they'll never come back. And he quickly stepped out of the circle, and it said he went and got a piece of food or a piece of bread, and he shoved it into the mouth of his partner, of his learning, of his study partner, for Rabbi Avraham. After which his teacher later on thanked him for bringing him back to reality, because had he not done so, the soul of Rabbi Avraham would have ascended to a place, to a level from which it could not come back. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, that's a long summary, isn't it? So basically, in a nutshell, there were 7 generations that pushed the divine presence away from the earth, starting with Adam, and there were 7 generations that brought it back, starting with Abraham and ending with Moses. Okay, someone's asking a question. You know what? Yeah, let me leave that question to the end, because otherwise we'll never get anywhere. Okay. Now, the implication in the Rebbe's discourse over here, the implication in the discourse, and it's not just an implication, it's actually explicit, but it's not stated as explicitly as I'm going to say it. There were 7 generations from the Alter Rebbe, from that Rabbi Shneur Zalman, until the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was our rabbi. And he was the seventh generation. So as he's going to explain, all seventh generations have a special mission. They have a special quality. They're especially beloved and cherished. And because Abraham was the seventh generation from Noah, and so on and so forth. And Moses was the seventh generation from Abraham, and the Rebbe was the seventh generation from the Alter Rebbe, from Rabbi Shneimeh Zalman Liadi. So, what the Rebbe says, what he's going to say, is that each of the rabbis brought down a different aspect of light for the sake of the world, and it's now up to us to build the proper vessel for it. And that's up to us to do, it's not up to him, it's up to us, up to all of us, with a little help from our friends. Okay, so what we had said prior to this in the discourse, was we were explaining, the rabbi here was explaining, the Rebbe was explaining the whole concept of Ikar Shechina. When it says that the Shechina, the divine presence, was in the world at the time that it was created, at the time of the creation of Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava. So the term used there in the Midrash, it's a Midrash Rabbah, the term used is Ikar Shechina B'tachtonim Hayasa, the main aspect of the Shechina. So the Rebbe wants to understand here, what is the main aspect of the Shechina? How does that differ from the regular use of the word Shechina, which means the divine presence? What's the main aspect, the main quality of the divine presence? So he goes through various explanations. And he starts with the statement of the Alter Rebbe. Again, the Alter Rebbe is Rabbi Shneimeh Zalman Liadi, the author of the Tanya, who was the first Lubavitcher rabbi, to which this Rebbe is the seventh. So he says the initial revelation of the infinite Ein Sof light is called the Shechina. That initial Ein Sof light, and that's the Ein Sof light that precedes the Tzimtzum. It came before the contraction. So the Ikar Shechina that was in this world was the Or Ein Sof as it is, even before the Tzimtzum, even before the contraction that we've spoken about a number of times in our classes. The Tzimtzum, the purpose of the Tzimtzum was to contract that light in order to create the world. But here we're talking about something that transcends creation. The Garden of Eden is a manifestation of something that transcends creation. It's above the concept of creation, because in it is revealed the divine presence. What aspect of the divine presence? The essence of the divine presence. The Ein Sof light, the Or Ein Sof, that precedes the contraction which creates the world. Because the creation of the world is not the purpose. The only purpose of the creation of the world is that the world should be the vessel. The creation itself is not that important. What's important is that the world should be a vessel for the absolute divine presence, for the Or Ein Sof, the Ein Sof light that precedes the Tzimtzum. And then the second Lubavitcher Rebbe went on to explain, his name is the Mittler Rebbe. So the Mittler Rebbe writes that the luminescence of the Kav and the Chut, the Kav is the line of light that comes after the Tzimtzum, in relation to the essence of the Ein Sof, is termed Shechina. So the line of light is termed Shechina, whereas the Ein Sof light that precedes the Tzimtzum is called the Ikar Shechina, the main aspect of the Shechina. The light that comes at the end of the Kav, or that the Kav brings down, is only that light that dwells within creation. It's the creative light, but it's not the essence of the light. And he goes on to explain further, for the meaning of the term Shechina varies according to the spiritual level of its context. In relation to Atzilus, it is Malchus of Atzilus, and so on. And then the third Lubavitcher Rebbe said as follows, he's called the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek explains that it applies only when Malchus becomes the level of Atik. In other words, Malchus in its own world is not called Shechina. It's only called Shechina when it becomes the Keter of the world below, the Atik of the world below. Then it's called Shechina. But the Ikar Shechina, the main aspect of Shechina, is the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. As he goes on to say, however, when Malchus is still in Atzilus, it's not called Shechina. Okay. He then went on to quote the Rebbe Maharash, and this is where we got up to last time, if I remember correctly. So this is where we are now. The Rebbe Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash, he's called the Maharash because his name was Moreno Harav Shmuel. So it's called the Maharash. It's a tradition in Chassidic circles to abbreviate the names of the rabbis, because we don't call them by their names. Just as you don't generally call your father by his name, you call him dad, or you call your mom, or whatever, Abba, Ima. But you don't call them by their name. Why? Because it's disrespectful. So the same thing, when we speak about the Rebbes, we don't use their names. You just call them Admor, or the master, or the Rebbe. If you're referring to him and you have to explain which master, so you give an initial of his name, the Rebbe Maharash. Okay. So the Rebbe Maharash writes that one of the reasons why the Kav is called Shechina in relation to the Ein Sof light is that the Kav is drawn down in order to become enclosed in the worlds and in souls, in Jewish souls. It is therefore termed Shechina even at its outset. Since its purpose is to be clothed down in the lower worlds, therefore it's called Shechina. But we're going to go back to the concept of Ikar Shechina shortly. The Rebbe Rashab, who was the son of the Rebbe Maharash, the Rebbe Maharash was the son of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was the son-in-law of the Mittler Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe was the son of the Alter Rebbe. Okay, so we're going down through the various Rebbes in the chain of Lubavitch descent, the descent of the Admorim, the dynasty of Lubavitch. So the Rebbe Rashab explains that on an even higher level, the first source of Shechina precedes the Tzimtzum, as we said before. For the revelation of divine light prior to the Tzimtzum is termed Shechina. The revelation of divine light prior to the Tzimtzum is termed Shechina. In other words, the Or Ein Sof is called Shechina. But he's going to make a distinction now that in Or Ein Sof, in the infinite light, there's actually two primary divisions. Well, there's actually three, but there's the main one, and then there's the other two, right? And I'll explain in a second. In general, there are three levels of godly illumination that precede the Tzimtzum. There's three levels in the Or Ein Sof, in the infinite light. What are these three levels? There's what's called the essence of the divine light, or Etzem HaOr. That's part A. That's the highest aspect, the essence of the divine light. And then there's the B and C, the two lower levels. One is the revelation of the light to himself, so to speak. In other words, it only remains for him. It's not available to anybody else, so to speak. Even after creation, it's not available. It can, in other words, it can't be elicited by those down here. It can be manifested by him up there, but it's not something that we can elicit through our own activities. Okay, so the essence of the divine light and the light that is revealed only to himself, that's A and B. Then comes C. C is, again, one of the subcategories, and that is called the diffusion of the light down below. These two levels, B and C, are called Hitpashtut HaOr, because even though they are, the first one, B, is revelation of the light to himself only, and the second one is the revelation of the light which brings about creation, right? That's C. Nevertheless, both of them are called revelation of light, whereas the essence of the light is not called revealed. Why is it not revealed? Because it's not revealed in consciousness at all. It's completely concealed to the essence of God, essentially. Okay, so we'll explain. The first of these is the revelation of light insofar as it is revealed to God himself only. This revelation being the source of light of Sovev Kol Almin, the light that transcends, encompasses all the world. The second, again, we said that there's three categories over here, but he divides them into two, and the division is over here. There's A, and then there's B and C. So now we're talking about A, and A on one hand and B and C on the other. So the first of these is the revelation of light insofar as it is revealed to God. I don't know why this came out as Gad, but it's supposed to be God himself. This revelation being the source of the light of Sovical, I mean the light, the transcending, encompassing light of all the world that is not within our grasp. The second, in other words, the second, that's B and C, the second is the revelation of light as revealed for himself that bears a relation to the worlds, this revelation being the source of the light of Mamalekul, I mean the light that fills the world and eventually comes out in the Kav. So it is this latter illumination, this one over here, the revelation of light, that is ultimately the source for the immanent light in the worlds. It is this later light, it is this latter illumination that is termed Shechina. Okay, now he's going to explain this a little bit further. Although this light precedes Tzimtzum, and thus cannot possibly serve as a source for the creation of worlds, because it precedes the Tzimtzum, and in order for the worlds to exist, the light has to be reduced and constricted. You can't plug your toaster in or your lamp into the main generator that's generating 1,000 megawatts or whatever a regular generator generates. Even 10 megawatts would completely fry your toaster or your lamp. It has to be stepped down by various transformers and so on and so forth until it comes to 120 volts or whatever in your house. I don't know if it's the voltage, the wattage, whatever. I'm not so familiar with these things, but in any event, we understand that the electricity at the generator is completely out of bounds for our regular appliances. Similarly, the Or Ein Sof is out of bounds for the appliances of the world. Let me just see something. Oh, 1 second. Oh, here we go. I lost the chat for a minute. It disappeared. Okay. Tanya. Yeah, it becomes modified. That's correct. Yeah. All right, we'll talk about Tanya afterwards. Okay. So this, although this light precedes Tzimtzum and thus cannot possibly serve as a source for the creation of worlds, for which reason it was necessary that there be a Tzimtzum in the first place, as we just explained. Moreover, the first Tzimtzum was not a mere diminution of the divine light, but an act of withdrawal. It was the divine withdrawal. It wasn't just a stepping down. I did explain it as just a stepping down, but it's more than that. It's the withdrawal of the light, which remains on a completely different plane. And what comes out, what emerges out of that is a much, much, much lower plane. It's not just a, how shall I say it? It's not just a single step down. It's a quantum leap down, so to speak. Okay, if anyone understands, I'm sure everybody understands what that means. It's quantum leap, meaning to say it's not the, it's already a different quality after the Tzimtzum. So the Tzimtzum was not a mere diminution of divine light, but an act of withdrawal. Nevertheless, this latter level of illumination is termed Shechina. We may now appreciate the precise wording of the Midrash, which teaches us that the essence of the Shechina was originally found in this lowly world. Not the Shechina, but the essence of the Shechina, the level before the Tzimtzum. Okay. It informs us that the revelation of the Shechina in this world is not of the level of Malchut, the Shechina, i.e. the Shechina in relation to Atzilus, to the world of Atzilut, nor is it the level of the Kav, i.e. the Shechina in relation to the Ein Sof light. Rather, what was present specifically in this lowly world was the essential and innermost quality degree, he says, innermost quality, I think is a better translation, i.e. the most transcendental and consequently non-manifest degree of the Shechina. That's what was present in the world at the beginning of creation, in the Garden of Eden, to Adam and Eve, to Adam and Chava. Now we understand how to what extent the sins of various generations screwed us all over. to use a colloquial term. Okay, Ernest says, like flooding the garden with a lot of water at first to get it moist and ready for growth, then establishing the drip irrigation restriction to slowly grow the garden. That's an interesting analogy. That's how it turned out in the end, yeah. I suppose you could say that that's how it turned out. He flooded it with this orange stuff, and then that was withdrawn, and then slowly, there was just drip irrigation kind of thing. Yeah, very good analogy, actually. Well done. Okay, so the reason why the Medrash must refer to the essential level of Shechina is as follows. So why does the Medrash refer to the essential level of Shechina? For the following reason. For the divine illumination clothed within the worlds descends in an orderly and progressive manner. We're talking about the light that is clothed in the world, not the light that transcends the worlds. Don't make a mistake. This is the light of creation, which comes down as how Ernest just said, which comes down sort of as drip irrigation. Yeah, a drip here and there, right? It's not the most. It's not the original revelation. Okay. Basi LeGani. Oh, are you not seeing it? Yeah. That's where it is. If you were, yeah, right. Excellent. That's where it's found. Yes. Right. Okay. So if anyone wants to see in the chat, you'll actually get the link over there. So for the divine illumination clothed within the worlds descends in an orderly and progressive manner, so that the loftier the world, the greater the degree of illumination. The higher the world, the greater the illumination. That's why it's called a higher world. The world of Atzilut is the world of closeness. The lower world, a world lower than that, is called the world of creation, the world of Bria, is the world of the first initial act of creation. The first world is the world of emanation, and so on and so forth. If anyone is interested in finding out more about the various worlds and what they correspond to, you can go to KabbalahOnline.org, KabbalahOnline.org with an H in the end of KabbalahOnline.org, one word, and look for the four worlds. It's an article which I wrote. There might be several articles describing the worlds, but one of the articles I wrote describing the four worlds. If you can't find it, drop me an email and I will send you a link to it. Obviously, it's free to everybody. The lower the world within the progressive chain of worlds, the less of the illumination. That's what makes it a lower world. As I think we've explained on a number of occasions, the word world in Hebrew, olam, world, comes from the word he'elem, concealment. So the lower the world, the more the concealment, obviously, the less the illumination. Okay? Well done. Worlds and Emanations. I don't know if that's the one that I wrote, but maybe it is. Worlds and Emanations could be. It is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks. Okay. So this is generally so regarding the illumination found within progressively descending levels. So you have the world of Atzilut and the world of Bria and the world of Yetzirah and the world of Asiya. The lower the world, the lowest world is the world of Asiya, the less the revelation. The physical world in which we live, the world the world of space and time, is the lowest aspect of the world of Atzilut, of Yetzirah. The lowest aspect of the world of Asiya. I'm doing a Joe Biden here. The lowest aspect of the world of Asiya. Okay, so that physical world, obviously we don't experience a direct revelation of godliness in the world. It's there. We can look for it. We can actually come to recognize it, but it demands work. It's not visible. It's not visible in normal waking day consciousness. Okay. So, consequently, with regard to the lower levels of Shechina, i.e. the illumination clothed within the world, the revelation is found to a greater degree in the higher world than in this physical world, obviously. Right? That's a consequence of what we just explained. Okay. Although it is true that before the sin of the tree of knowledge, the illumination was revealed in this world as well, before the sin of the tree of knowledge. Nevertheless, even then, the illumination was revealed to a greater extent in the higher worlds. It was here, and it was revealed here, and that aspect, the light of creation, was revealed in this world, but it was revealed to a high extent in the higher worlds. But that's only the light of creation. That's not the light of the essence of the Shechina. We'll get to that in a minute. In the words of our sages, they explained it like this. He extended his right hand and created heavens. He extended his left hand and created earth. The right hand and the left hand are obviously not meant to be taken literally. This is just a what's called a mashal, and a metaphor. The right hand is a metaphor for, generally, most people, for the hand with more strength. And the left hand is the hand that is weaker. In fact, in Hebrew, the left hand, in biblical Hebrew, the left hand is called the yad keheh, the dark hand, or the hand lacking light, lacking energy, lacking light. Why? Because traditionally, the vast majority of people, I think 95% of people are right-handed, something like that. Only 5% left-handed. And a very small percent ambidextrous. So the right hand, therefore, is an analogy, it's a metaphor for revelation. The left hand is a metaphor for a much lesser revelation. So he extended his right hand, those are the higher worlds, created the heavens. He extended his left hand and created the earth, a much lesser revelation, the earth. So we are forced to say, we must perforce say, it's like Old English, we must perforce say that the above statement that the essence of the Shechina was originally found in this lower world refers to the divine illumination that transcends all of the worlds. And therefore it is revealed in this world just as equally as anywhere else, because it's the divine presence which is not subject to degrees. It's the essence of the Shechina, it's the essence of the divine presence. There's no degrees in it. There's no higher and lower, more in this world and less in that world. It's everywhere equally. Okay. And it was found in this world in a way which was able to be absorbed into Adam's consciousness had he done what he was supposed to do. All right, so we finished this chapter now, and we were going to go on to the next chapter next time. Just for any of you who want to continue looking at this discourse on your own, you can take the, how do you call it, you could take the URL from the top over here, and then next chapter, you just press next, all right? I think it's at the beginning as well. You can just press next right at the beginning. Yeah, whatever it is, the beginning and the end of the chapter, you just press next to chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. I think there's 7 chapters altogether. Okay. All right, we'll continue with this. I don't know if I'm going to continue with this next week, because next week is already the week before Pesach, before Passover, and things are going to be very busy, and through Passover as well. But after Passover, we'll continue. Maybe we'll refer to the ore and the nutrients within water is Shechina. You could think of it like that. Yeah, you could think of it like that. The high worlds ascended began with the sun, with the sin rising to the 7th level. Please explain. Sorry, I don't understand. Okay. Okay. Yeah, is it information on Kabbalah Online? I don't know. It could be. I don't recall if I wrote an article on it or not. Let me just explain. When we say that this aspect over here is everywhere equally, that is true. However, it was possible to be revealed in consciousness only in this world. And therefore, when for reasons which we'll explain in the continuation of the discourse, basically that was what he wanted. He wanted the Ika Shechina B'Tachtonim, that's what he wanted. He wanted the Ika Shechina to be revealed in the lower worlds. And he'll explain it in continuity. But after the sin of Adam, that was no longer available in this world. In other words, that in order to achieve that consciousness, one had to now ascend to a higher world to be able to grasp that consciousness. Even though the consciousness is here, but it's not available now. It's only available in divine consciousness, not available in human consciousness. In order for it to be available in human consciousness, you would have to go up to a higher level in order to bring it, in order to access it. I hope that explains the concept of sin. Yeah, you can look at a lot of stuff. I've written a lot of articles for Kabbalah online. There's also some other very good authors over there. Maybe I shouldn't say it quite like that, but yeah, there are some excellent authors there. Look around. There are some articles there which are not so, which I personally don't feel are really get to the, explain things in the proper way. But nevertheless, look around there. It's a completely authentic website, and there's a lot of stuff there that you might want to look at. Yeah, Nefesh HaChaim also discusses it a little bit. Yeah, Nefesh HaChaim also discusses it to some extent. Yeah, from somewhat of a different point of view. But yeah, okay. Now let me go back to some of the other questions here. Yeah, someone asked about learning Tanya on a regular basis. I tell you what, Shane, let's finish this course. We have several chapters to go. When we finish this discourse, which will probably take a few weeks after Passover, then we'll visit it again. We'll certainly think about it. It's certainly possible to do, and we can do it in this time slot. Tanya is a very interesting work and very well worth learning. It's the fundamental teachings of Chassidic philosophy. All right. Tonight's lecture, where is it found? I will post it on the YouTube link as usual. All right. Are there any other questions, not necessarily related to our current discussion? None? Okay. Yeah, for sure. You have one. Okay, shoot. You're welcome. Hope things have gone well this past 2 weeks. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned it actually. My daughter had a baby. Today the baby came home from the hospital. She had a baby the day before yesterday. It was a little later than we were expecting, but in its own good time. Very sweet little girl. A girl, yes, a little girl. She now has 2 boys and 2 girls, and the baby's name is Rina, which means song. Azalto, thank you. Thank you. So, your daughter got engaged today. Wowie zowie. That is great. Azaltov. How's my other daughter, the one with corona? She's doing okay. It's a trying time for everybody, but my daughter and son-in-law both have corona, and probably the kids have it too. But they'll see it through, God willing. They live in New York. I mean, I'm probably 80% of New York has it by now. So God willing, everyone will get well. And yeah, there's some people that are very sick. Okay, is it Ratzon to real more of the Shechina in the lower world? Then it should be imperative to make it a different tiny, but it does not mean the elevation in the lower world or the drawing down of the divinity, or these the same thing. Okay, let me explain Ian's question. A very important question. Ein is asking the following. What is the ultimate purpose? Is the ultimate purpose to bring the divine presence down into this world, or is the ultimate the intention for this world to be elevated up into the divine presence? Or is it the same thing? It is pretty clear from many midrashim and most Chassidic discourses that the idea is to bring the divine presence down into this world. Why? Because that's what he wanted. If he wanted more angels or more beings on a higher spiritual levels, then that would have been the thing to do. We'd have just meditated and prayed and lived in isolation, maybe in a mountaintop or a cave or something like that, whatever. But God clearly wanted the world to be a dwelling place for the essence of godliness, because it is to a certain extent a contradiction. How can the physical world be the dwelling place for the essence of godliness? It's a real question, and the real answer is it's a contradiction, and we don't know how that could be, but that's what he wanted. Only he knows how that could be. But that's what was what is required, and therefore you will find that Judaism is to a certain extent unique, I think, in from this point of view of insisting on the importance of action. The actions are the commandments. The vast majority of the 613 commandments that there are in the Torah and the Bible, the vast majority of them are actually physical actions. And the reason for this, even though the physical actions have their own special intentions and special meditations associated with them, nevertheless, our sages tell us, Hamaisa hu ha'ikar. The action is the main thing. The act is the main thing. Why? Because it is in the act that the ultimate intention the ultimate divine intention is embedded. Paradoxical is the norm. Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't that be her essence, the essence of the Shechina and our awareness? Yeah. I should agree. As we go through the body, Kabbalah can be shown, always been, but the action's final point of view. Yes, we are made in His likeness. We have a spark of Him within us. Is that spark essence? Yes. In other words, let's put it this way. Let's not make a mistake here. For us to say that we are God would be a mistake. For us to say that we have God consciousness, or that we have a level of consciousness called the Yechida of the soul. The Yechida is that's God consciousness, consciousness of the essence of God, which is called Yechida of the soul. You can look at that same website and you'll see levels of soul, 5 levels of soul. Another article that I wrote on the 5 levels of the soul. You'll see there's linked articles there all over the place. So anyway, yes. So we have what we have within us is the essence, the inner essence of ourselves, which most of us are not aware of, is the level called Yechida, the highest level of consciousness, which is consciousness of the essence of God. Yes. Divinity is brought down through action. Exactly. We are an eminent expression of God manifested in the lower world. That's correct. Yeah, we are. As is everything else, but yes. But not everything is manifested in the lower world. You're right. Back to transcendent divinity through our consciousness, yes. And through the mitzvahs. Through the mitzvot, through the commandments, yes. Through Torah. All right, folks. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead and you can send an email. I don't promise to answer it right away because tomorrow's Friday and then Shabbos and then Pesach's coming up, but you know how things go. Okay.